Hi everyone. So today in this third lecture of endocrine system, we are going to talk about, or we're going to start talking about the anterior pituitary. So the last time, if you remember, we finished talking about posterior pituitary, and now we're going to talk about anterior pituitary, right? So we'll start from there. So what we discussed based on that, in anterior pituitary, actually there are three sets of hormone produced. How is it coming from? It is coming from the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus actually secretes the first set of hormones, and from hypothalamus, and this is of course happening. I mean, when hypothalamus will secrete upon a certain stimulation. For example, you are low on some hormones, you need some hormone to be released in your body. So in that case, only hypothalamus will get that stimulation to create that these hormones. So there are a set of hormones that this hypothalamus will secrete. Now those hormones will travel to anterior pituitary with the help of the hypophyseal artery. Okay. Or basically to the portal, through the portal veins, and then it will travel into the anterior pituitary. So when anterior pituitary has those hormones, then it will start secreting this six set of hormones. Okay, growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone ACTH, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin hormone. This six set of hormones. Now, before we even begin, you can use all the abbreviations of these hormones. You don't have to use the whole name all the time. So now when these six of set of hormones are released, now they will travel to their target organ, and finally the third set of hormone will be released, right? So all these six hormones that are anterior pituitary are releasing, these are all peptide hormones, right? So these are all peptide hormones, starting from growth, thyroid, ACTH, follicle stimulating, luteinizing, and prolactin hormones. So these are six hormones that are released by the anterior pituitary. Now we will talk about all of them. Other growth hormone actually works slightly differently, or their mode of action is slightly different. Other than that, the other ones actually more or less works on the same way. All right. And these four are called as the tropic hormone, thyroid stimulating, ACTH, FSH, LH, because they have a very specific target organ, or other endocrine gland is their target. Wherever, I mean, they are being secreted from the pituitary, but their target is actually another proper endocrine gland, which is releasing their own hormones again. So that's why these are called as tropic hormones. In this case, it may not be necessarily that their target is a, it can be an organ, but not necessarily an endocrine organ. So we'll talk about their functions. So let's get back into the first picture that we discussed, which was this one. So what are these? So these are the all the hormones that are released by the hypothalamus upon stimulation. So what are the stimulations? We'll discuss about them one by one. But they have, now one thing, they don't have to be secreted everything at the same time. It can be one at a time. All right. So, for example, corticotropin releasing hormone CRH, when that is being released from the hypothalamus, it travels to the anterior pituitary. Then it stimulates the formation of ACTH. ACTH now travels to adrenal gland and then creates, or now adrenal glands now produces the glucocorticoid, a set of steroid hormones. Thyrotropin releasing hormone, when that is released, then that actually affects the anterior pituitary gland to create TSH, okay, thyroid stimulating hormone. And thyroid stimulating hormone now affects the thyroid gland to create the thyroid hormones, which actually controls our metabolic rate. Then growth hormone releasing hormone, or growth hormone inhibiting hormone, these are kind of, you can say they are the similar function but opposite way. So whenever we need to have more growth, or we need to have growth hormone, then the GHRH, the growth hormone releasing hormone, will be released. And if we don't need the growth hormone, then the inhibiting hormone will be released. So you can count them as together. So when these guys are released, if the growth hormone releasing hormone is being released, then the growth hormone will be released from anterior pituitary. That will affect the liver, and then that will affect these bone, skeletal muscles, and other tissues. Now when obviously growth hormone releasing hormone is released, then the inhibiting hormone is not released, because if the inhibiting hormone is released, then this one is not released. So they work in a similar direction, but their function is opposite. Same as the prolactin. So the when prolactin releasing factor will only be released if our body needs prolactin. Okay, so when prolactin releasing hormone PRF is produced, then that affects anterior pituitary producing prolactin releasing hormone, and then that will be affecting the mammary gland, which will actually help in milk production. So whenever, and this is typically active in females only, it's not so much so active in males. So whenever we need milk production, then only this will happen. Otherwise the prolactin inhibition hormone will be working all the time. Then another last one is gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. This actually controls the release of FSH and LH from the anterior pituitary. Now FSH and LH both affects our reproductive system. In females it will be the ovaries, in males it will be the testes, and it has a whole set of functions. So these organs will actually will actually produce estrogen and progesterone in females, and testosterone in males. Also will produce eggs and sperms, right? So we'll talk about the detailed functions. So these are the set of hypothalamus hormones. Okay, these are the hypothalamus hormones. These are the anterior pituitary hormones, and these are the final set of hormones. Okay, so anterior pituitary actually releasing these 6 hormones: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and these are the final set in response to that. Now we'll talk about each of their function individually. So we'll start with growth hormone, right? Right, growth hormone. So growth hormone is also called as somatotropin, as it is produced by the somatotropic cells. Now anterior pituitary has specific cells which will release their own hormone. For example, somatotropic will only release growth hormone in response to when GHRH is being released. So whenever we need growth hormone, whenever we need to have growth, then only this hormone will be released, otherwise not. Otherwise the inhibiting hormone is released. So you have to understand one thing: when GHRH is higher, then the inhibiting hormone is low, but if the inhibiting hormone is high, then the growth hormone will not be released. All right, so what happens when GHRH is released? In response to that, anterior pituitary is releasing growth hormone. So this influences the production of growth hormone. Now this can go in two directions. It can have a direct activity, which is a metabolic activity. What is that? It will increase the blood glucose and other anti insulin effect. Also will help to break down fats and stuff. So that's a direct action. Otherwise indirectly it will also can affect like another organ like liver, so which will produce insulin like growth factors, IGFs, which will actually in turn will help in skeletal growth or bone growth, cartilage growth, and and that is, this too will typically happen in kids. And now as an adult, when we need it, if we need it for cell growth and proliferation. So for example, it will also be required in the kids, but in adults, if you have an injured tissue or something, then you need cell proliferation, cell division to happen, then we need growth hormone. So that is only when it will be required in adults. So whenever we have a good amount of growth hormone already in our body, we don't want it to be released anymore. Therefore at that time negative feedback system will work, and that will inhibit the GHRH, the growth hormone releasing hormone. At that time the inhibiting hormone will work. Okay, so whenever we need it, then only we will produce these hormones, otherwise we will not. And that is true for more or less for all the anterior pituitary hormones we have. Next is the gonadotropins in FSH and LH. So FSH full form is follicle stimulating hormone, and LH is luteinizing hormone. Okay, and these are produced by the gonadotropic cells of the anterior pituitary. Somato means again for growth, so that's why it is the growth hormone, and gonado means it is related to gonad, so gonadotropic cells. So FSH will stimulate the production of gametes from the reproductive organs. In females, it will be ovaries, and the ovaries will produce egg. In males, it will be the testes. The testes will produce sperm, which is our gametes. The LH actually will help in production the gonadal hormones. So in this case, LH will actually help in the production of estrogen, progesterone, but in females, LH have other functions also. For example, triggering ovulation, helping in maturation of egg and all of that. In males, luteinizing hormone, it will help in the production of testosterone. So males obviously don't have ovulation and all of that, so it will only help in testosterone production. So two different kinds of function, and LSH and LH, FSH and LH both are absent in pre-pubertal, when pre-pubertal boys and girls, so they are not released at that time. So after puberty only, and then during puberty and after puberty, these gonadotropin releasing hormones are released from the hypothalamus. In response to that, FSH-LH is released, which again affects the ovary or the testis, right? And this is also suppressed by the gonadal hormone negative feedback. So after puberty again, so this is when we have puberty, or after that, then the hypothalamus will start producing GnRH. Then we will start producing LH and FSH from anterior pituitary. Then these guys will affect the testis, and the ovary will help in production of estrogen in females, and progesterone of course also, and then testosterone in males, and also help in the formation of our gametes, which is sperm and egg. And when we have enough of these hormones, then the system will go into negative feedback, so then the production will cut down. Okay, so we covered two growth hormones first, and then we spoke about the gonadotropins. The next one we'll talk about thyroid stimulating hormone. The pathway, these has the very common pathway. So again, the cells that actually produce thyroid stimulating hormone, it is coming from TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone from hypothalamus, and TRH is actually secreted by these thyrotropic cells. When TRH is secreted, that influences the anterior pituitary to produce thyroid stimulating hormone, and thyroid stimulating hormone's target organ is a thyroid gland, which again produces two types of thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, which these have major roles in our metabolism. Okay, TRH, TSH, and then thyroid hormones. So we will get into that, what is T3 and T4. So whenever we have enough of thyroid hormones, then the inhibition pathway, the negative feedback pathway will work, and this whole pathway will be cut down. So we will not be producing TSH or TRH at that time anymore. Yes, we will talk about the thyroid gland and that later. So now next is the adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. Is also called as a corticotropic because it is secreted by the corticotrophic cells of the anterior pituitary. One thing I said wrong here, the thyrotropin TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, is actually secreted by the thyrotropic cells of the anterior pituitary. I said the hypothalamus, not the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus produces TRH, and then from there the anterior pituitary produces TSH, and these thyrotropic cells actually produces these TSH in the anterior pituitary. Similarly here, this ACTH is secreted by the corticotrophic cells of the anterior pituitary. What is the precursor? What is the hypothalamic hormone? Is the corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH. And this is typically found in highest level in the morning time, and then that impacts the anterior pituitary to produce ACTH, and then it's so on. It actually relates with our stress factors, or whenever we have low glucose, hypoglycemia. Typically in the morning, maybe we have low glucose, and then these things will trigger. For example, So these will be the factor. If you are for some reason, if you're stressed, you're low in glucose, you're fever, so when you need more supply of glucose, so then these whole process will kick over. All right. Now comes the prolactin. What is prolactin? This is secreted by the prolactin cells directly of the anterior pituitary, which means this actually stimulates the milk production in females. In males, they don't have any much defined function. So now increased, and who actually creates or produces prolactin? It is being stimulated by PRL, right? So prolactin is PRL, and then but when prolactin is not being created, then prolactin inhibiting hormone, which is dopamine, is created. So whenever we have the requirement of milk production in females, only then it will be produced. And increased estrogen actually can also sometimes stimulate the PRL production as well, okay, which is typically seen during menstruation cycle as well. And towards end of pregnancy, actually generally in females, the prolactin hormones will actually rise, because that is when it is required for the baby, right? So otherwise the prolactin inhibiting hormone will be working. So some homeostatic imbalance example, for example, in growth hormone. So if children have hyper secretion, too much secretion of growth hormone, that can result in gigantism, like too much growth, and a person can grow up to 8 feet. Or in adults, it can result in acromegaly, means overgrowth of hands, feet, or face. Hyposecretion might result in dwarfism, might only the person might reach to a height of only maybe 4 feet. Typically, dwarfism generally does not cause any other problem, neither does gigantism generally, in terms of metabolic functions or things like that. But the growth is a little bit different. Now, here comes your next three concept check questions. So, firstly, the question is asking, list the four anterior pituitary hormones that are tropic hormones and name their target glands. So, I'm not going to discuss this. You're going to work on yourself. You're going to work on this question on yourself. So, you do have this list of hormones that is secreted. I gave you the list already. So, these are the tropic hormones. That is listed here, and these are the all six hormones secreted by anterior pituitary. And I told you what tropic hormones are, why they are called as tropic hormones, and then the target organs you can figure out from this figure or from the textbook, right? So who has the what kind of target organ. So work on this question on your own. All right. The next question asks, hormones secreted by the hypophyseal portal system is detected by which one? It is detected by the anterior pituitary, right? So if you see here, the hypophyseal artery, the portal vein actually carries the hormone. Opposed to that, posterior pituitary has this hypothalamic hypophyseal tract directly, right, that carries the ADH and the oxytocin into the posterior pituitary. So this second one will be anterior pituitary, the hypophyseal portal system. Now, a patient is displaying high volumes of urine output and severe dehydration. What is it causing? So this has nothing to do with oxytocin, because I told you that urine production is controlled by ADH. So either it will be hyposecretion or hypersecretion. Now ADH, when, again, let's go back to that slide. So the question is saying that the person is suffering from high urine input and dehydration, means the person is less in amount of water, is being retained less in that person's body. That means ADH is secreted less. That person has ADH deficiency, maybe diabetes insipidus, because ADH actually helps in water reabsorption from kidney. Okay, water reabsorption from kidney. So if ADH is less, that means that person is losing too much of water from body. ADH is not working, it's less in amount. So that means that the person will have to drink more water to keep the person hydrated, right? So because the person is losing water too much and ADH is secreted less, that's why he or she is having high volumes of urine output and severe dehydration. Okay, because ADH again helps in reabsorption of water from the kidney tubules. All right. Now, the last two things we'll discuss in this third lecture is about thyroid hormone, the hormones produced by thyroid gland, and then thyroxine formation. So, what is thyroid gland? This is a butterfly-shaped gland that's produced on like sitting on the trachea. Looks like this. It's inferior to larynx. And if you when you see in lab, you will see like thyroid glands looks like this. It will have these follicular cells which actually produce the thyroid hormones. This will have some parafollicular cells which we will talk later that secretes calcitonin, and there's a lot of colloid fill space, empty spaces actually, and within the empty spaces actually within this kind of looks like an island of cells, and these are the follicular cells over here toward the edge actually, which actually helps in secretion of the thyroid hormone itself. So what does thyroid hormone do? Again, we have discussed the whole pathway. So this is coming from thyroid stimulating hormone. Now the thyroid stimulating hormone affecting the thyroid gland itself, which is this gland, and from here now we are producing the thyroid hormone which has metabolic functions. Now the thyroid hormone TH can be found in two forms, thyroxine T4 or T3, which is triiodothyronine. Small difference is basically both have two tyrosine molecules, but in T4 there are 4 iodine atoms. Here there are 3 iodine atoms in T3. That's why it is 3 and this is 4. Now T3 is the functional form, therefore in order to use thyroid hormone, T4 needs to be converted into T3. Okay, but both are nothing but iodine containing amine hormones. Okay, now TH virtually affects every cell in our body because cells are involved in metabolism. So therefore it has a huge calorigenic effect, affects our basal metabolic rate and heat production in our body, helps in tissue growth, critical for skeletal and nervous system therefore, and also our entire development depends on this, and then as well as reproductive capabilities. It also helps in maintaining our blood pressure. So this is the whole pathway we just discussed, right? This table can be important. We kind of discussed the whole function of the T3 and T4 or the thyroid hormones, but this kind of tells you in more details. What can cause what can happen in case of homeostatic imbalance of TH? For example, hyposecretion of TH in adults can lead to myxedema, which simply means low metabolic rate, dry skin, feeling chilled, edema, lethargies, all of that. If a person is lack in iodine, obviously then forming the T3 T4 will be a problem, and as a result of that this will decrease the result of thyroid hormone, which will trigger increased TSH secretion. Again, if less thyroid hormone is there, so that is a trigger. The body will think that I need to produce more and more thyroid stimulating hormone because I don't have enough thyroid hormones. So what happens in that case, too much of TSH produces, and that actually the thyroid gland starts enlarging at that time. Okay, and most of the thyroglobulin at this point is not usable anymore. It's a disorder. The last one we'll talk about is calcitonin. So this is an antagonist hormone to PTH. We have discussed this. So this is produced by these parafollicular cells of thyroid in response to, if you remember, in response to high calcium levels. PTH works when calcium is low, and calcitonin works if calcium is high. Okay, so no such huge physiological role, but it inhibits the osteoclast activity and prevents, because we have enough calcium, prevents the release of more calcium from bone matrix, stimulates calcium uptake and incorporation into bone matrix if we have too much of calcium, because if we have too much of calcium we'll start forming stones in different areas of our body. Okay, the next one is a parathyroid hormone. So parathyroid hormones are this, on the back side of the thyroid gland we have these teeny tiny glands here. Generally these are 4 in number, but it can be 8 also. These are called as parathyroid glands. Okay, so parathyroid glands have this parathyroid cells within them which actually secretes the parathyroid hormone itself, okay, or parathormone. And we just discussed that when is PTH released? When we have low calcium blood, okay, then the PTH will actually trigger the whole pathway of calcium release and target organ skeleton, kidney and intestine. You know this already from 208. So whenever we have low calcium level, hypocalcemia, PTH will, the parathyroid hormone will start releasing PTH. Three way it can affect our body. Either it can increase the osteoclast activity, which means bone will start releasing more calcium in the blood. Kidney will start reabsorbing more calcium from our food, or activation of vitamin D by kidney, which also means that intestine will also start more absorbing more calcium for our food. So through these three pathways, actually calcium in our body is increased. So that's the function of PTH. The next hormone we'll talk about is the adrenal gland and their physiological effect. So this is a pyramidal gland on top of the kidney. It's also called as the suprarenal gland. Now we will talk more about that in our last lecture of endocrine system. All right. See you then.